Hello Shas'uis, welcome to another video where we are going to be talking about something which is very, very exciting that will be coming back into the meta in a very, very big way. Can I just say, dunna, dunna, we are of course talking about the tiger shark with that awkward as fuck intro. And the reason we're going to be talking about the tiger shark is because there was a pretty significant change to the core rules with the most recent Darkstrider and Munitorium field manual. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video where we are going to give you a starter list for running a tiger shark or being able to plug in 2 tiger sharks and get some sort of effective value out of this unit and not give up the game in running 2 flyers. Now, what am I talking about here? Because nothing seemingly changed for Tau rules or for the tiger shark specifically. Well, what we are talking about is the change in the core rules FAQ, where it states, as it did before, that a model that comes in that is not able to wholly fit its base inside of the 6-inch from a board edge restriction from strategic reserves is unable to act. But a very important distinction that has been placed in this FAQ is the tag excluding aircraft. Now, what this meant is that the Tiger Shark was unable to act unless you were playing on WTC rule sets, because WTC changed the base size for the Tiger Shark to allow it to serve this function. Now, GW, who had it on a larger base size originally, have allowed the exact same functionality as you had on the WTC rule sets in GW. It's also very, very nice for Tiger Shark owners to be able to just, put them on one base and not have to get a second one because reasons. Now, if anyone's sitting there thinking, well, the Tiger Shark is one, a very expensive investment from Forge World, and 2, what's the big hype about it? Like, if I were to go and pay that price, what would I actually be getting for my investment? Well, let's take a look at that, shall we? So what we are talking about is a model that is able to take a number of guns and use them very, very effectively. Now, obviously, a downside of the Tiger Shark is that it suffers from the split fire penalty, meaning that some of its best guns are going to go into, say, high toughness units, and then other guns want to go into little trash infantry units that are nearby. This is kind of the reality that us Tau players have had to live within. Thank you, GW, for that, by the way. But when we look at, for example, a unit that is 275 points, which, by the way, is less than both taking 2 hammerheads or taking 2 skyrays, you get 2 of the Swift Strike railguns. Now, if you look at their profile and you think this looks awfully similar to something else, yeah, you'd be right. That is a hammerhead railgun, which is strapped onto a vehicle chassis and gets all of the same things that a hammerhead does, but on this platform as opposed to the hammerhead. Now, the one difference on it you'll notice is that it doesn't have heavy, but that wouldn't make sense as an aircraft cannot ever be stationary. So it wouldn't make sense to put heavy on it because that's a rule that you could never use. And competing with the same slot is the sets of ion cannon, not to be confused with the cyclic ion blaster. The ion cannons are both blast weapons, D6 plus 3 each, and then you're also getting for that a 3 damage gun. Obviously, you'll naturally be going for the overcharge profile in most of your attempts at shooting. The only time that I really wouldn't do this is if I was at 3 wounds or less and I just can't lose that Tiger Shark for whatever reason. But even then, if it's at 3 wounds, I'm probably expecting to lose it the next turn, so I probably would just overcharge it as a nice big fuck you to my opponent.
Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. You're cool. And fuck you, I'm out.
So realistically, what you've got on a base profile, if you're not taking the railguns, is 2d6 plus 6 shots at strength 8, AP 2, damage 3. And if we pair this with one of the detachments that you're more likely to take this in, which is either Calyon or Mont'ka, you're either getting sustain 2 if you bring in that flyer on turn 3, or you're getting lethal hits when you're guiding it, and you probably will want to guide this thing. The only exception being is if nothing else in your army can see the target that you're shooting at. And that is probably a very big point to bring up, as quoting weapon profiles at you will obviously only go so far. There are plenty of people that will just quote weapon profiles to tell somebody something is good, but on paper, This is kind of just like a lot of other platforms that we could take in smaller unit sizes and still get about the same amount of output, with the Tiger Shark coming ahead because of its Sky Spear missile rack and all the Seeker missiles that it holds and everything else. But a very, very important thing to note with any of the aircraft within this edition, they ignore the obscuring rule. So they are able to see through terrain basically as if it doesn't exist, but with a caveat. It cannot see through hard physical walls. So if you've got, say, for example, playing on what is becoming the tournament standard with first floor completely blocked out and 3-story buildings completely blocked out, you are not able to physically see through it unless there are windows that are said to be open by your TO. Usually with these terrain sets, you have to be on the other side of a wall to be able to see. One of the big distinctions for aircraft, however, is that the base, if they're standing on it or not, provides no benefit of line of sight blocking, meaning that if you've got the smaller 2-story buildings, you are very easily able to see over the top of them and get at units that your opponent would not otherwise be getting shot. And because these are coming in from either rapid ingress or from strategic reserves, you have a lot of flexibility with the part of the board that they're coming in on. Not to mention that you measure all of your 9 inches from its base, and the overhang of the Tiger Shark is extreme. And after we're done going through the profiles, we'll jump on the Tabletop Simulator and I will show you just how big this thing's wingspan is. As I said before, the Sky Spear missile rack, which is something that improves its output, you are looking at a profile which is D6 plus 1 shots, anti-fly 3+, and blast on top of that. Now, it is only a modest strength 6 AP1 damage 1, which is functionally a breacher's shotgun, but this thing is shooting from 72 inches away, which means that you will get a lot more value of it over time, especially if your opponent is not rocking the same amount of long-range shooting that you are, and you'll mitigate your Tiger Sharks getting shot at quite well if you are pressuring your opponent on other sides of the board. Now, speaking of the Sky Spear missile rack, you're like, okay, it's a couple of breacher shotguns latched onto it. Well, it takes 2 of them. So you are doing 2d6 plus 2 blast, anti-fly 3+. This is very, very effective into a number of targets. And if you are rocking something like Mont'ka, you're getting lethal hits on any 6s that you roll with this unit. Very, very, very effective in plinking off those last few wounds that the rail guns or the ion cannons were not able to do. You're also able to swap out the 2 burst cannons for the 2 cyclic ion blasters, which, if you're familiar with any of Index Tower whatsoever, you know what the cyclics can do. And swapping out 2 crappy burst cannons with no AP for something which can overcharge for strength 8 AP2 damage 2 at the exact same range, and all you have to do is take hazardous for it. Yeah, I'm probably going to do that. I'll probably do that 100% of the time. Why not? On top of that, you have 2 missile pods, which is an extra 4 shots at strength 7, AP1, damage 2. All of this is able to be buffed by things like stratagems, where you could, for example, have this thing and another unit shoot at the same target and spend 1 CP to get 1 extra point of AP on both of those units shooting. All you'll need is just your observer unit to see the same unit and then just dedicate to shooting both of them at the same target. And this is an enormous amount of output to put into something. If you were to do 2 of these guys into, say, a Big Knight, you have a lot of shooting they're going to have to mitigate, and it's very likely that this combined 275 plus 275 unit picks up that Big Knight without too much of a problem, and that is a problem for the Knights player, because even though you have spent more points to kill something of lesser points, it's not by much. And on top of that, losing a Big Knight is very, very different to then in the clapback losing 1 of these flyers. Because let's not forget, these things are tier 11 with 18 wounds and a 5-up invulnerable save. They are basically a flying knight, which is really cool, which is really, really cool. The other thing that Tiger Shark's rocking that makes it a little bit of a defensive layer, although it's not easily apparent at first, is that if you go into something like a combat army, they will not be able to interact with this at all, as you need to have flying units in order to be able to charge them. And yes, there are certain units from Marines that have like jump pack units, sanguinary guard, all that sort of thing. There are also armies like World Eaters and Space Wolves and Drukhari and Harlequins, which are not rocking a lot of flying melee units, meaning that these things can fly around with impunity, going wherever they want, not worrying about the position off because of the large wingspan, and because GW has said that a unit is able to overhang the board edge if the base is fitting onto the board, just that whatever's hanging over the board edge doesn't exist for the purposes of shooting and whatever. That means you have a lot of flexibility with these guys. And my greatest woe is that I do not own a single one. It will be TTS only for me for a little bit, but if I'm able to get my hands on a Tiger Shark or two, I will absolutely be rocking some of these guys, because this is such an awesome list flexibility where I can play the standard Breacher Fish, I can play the standard Ret Carter, I can play the Crude Hunting Pack, but then we have within our codex yet another data sheet which is this effective, this points efficient, and honestly this scary for our opponent to have to try and deal with, knowing the amount of damage that this thing can output. Now, one of the innate downsides baked into this flyer is that flyers can't hold objectives, they can't do actions, they can't interact with your action economy across the board to make sure that you're winning games outside of damage. Because remember, damage and kills do not win games, points do. So, how do we mitigate those points? Well, let's jump over to TTS, and I'm going to show you the flyer's wingspan so you can see just how much flexibility we have with shooting stuff. And then let's go to a starter list where you can look at what might be a great list for you to work into with the Tiger Sharks.
What up, Shas? Jay from the future here. I'm just editing the video, and I also noticed something else when I was looking at my captures for putting all the information that I normally put on screen for you guys. And this is a big one for why the Tiger Shark also benefits you in a weird kind of way that won't always come up, but sometimes can. Aircraft models that have to be set up in reserves do not count on the limit of what can go into strategic reserves for your army. It only states reserves, and they are counted as strategic reserves after the battle has started. Meaning that if you have other things that you need to put into strategic reserves, you're not completely ruining yourself by the aircraft that you're putting in there. They are strictly just going into reserves. Now, obviously, you've got to look at the limit for how much reserves you're allowed to have from your army, and they will still count towards that, it's my understanding, but it doesn't immediately just brick being able to put other things in there. So double check the limits that you can have on there, and make sure that for the list that you have written, if you've got that 275 going in there, you will have X amount left over for other units to be able to put into reserves and have none of the aircraft count towards the 250 or 500 or whatever it is of strategic reserves.
Okay, so here we are on Tabletop Simulator, and I've just set up a couple of areas where your opponent might have positioned, if we were the blue player just here, where it would be hard to get angles on these. Angry Ron is not touching the ruin, and he's hiding behind there, so even though his wings are sticking over, we can't target him unless we can draw around this base. These Khorne Berserkers are hidden inside the walls. The Lord Avocado is just back here, making himself much, much harder to see than he should be. And then units of Jackals and Berserkers at the back just hiding themselves and getting ready to jump out and crush us. Now, if we bring in a Tiger Shark, we are outside a 9 of that Khorne Berserker by our base. However, guess what? We're able to see and shoot that Demon Prince, which is about to have a very bad day. We are also able to see and shoot those guys. We are also, because of the wings, able to shoot Angry Ron from the other side of the board. And then our opponent has to worry about, well, where is this guy going to come from after he rotates and then does his thing? Where is he going to shoot from? Now, obviously, I've got it through the wall there, but you take my point. If we were to come down this side, we are wholly within... Oh, we don't have to be wholly within 6, but we do have to have the edge of our base touching the board edge. So, what about here? Able to shoot Angry Ron. We are also able to, because of those weapons poking out, which our opponent did not properly hide, from here, we are able to shoot them because that base means literally nothing. We are able to shoot them. Also, because of the open windows there, we can see not only the top of the Demon Prince, but the Lord Avocado as well, meaning that your opponent will have to really, really think about whether he wants this Icon of Khorne to be giving us an angle on it to be able to shoot him. That is opening up 4 targets just for putting it here at the back of our board. It is actually ridiculous how much aircraft can get away with, and this isn't even the broken iteration of aircraft that we had in 9th edition where aircraft could start on the board. This is coming in from your turn 2. And don't forget, by your turn 2, your opponent has taken at least 1 turn, meaning that their concern will be on scoring primary, doing actions, doing all that sort of stuff. So it's if they decide to hide all the way at the back of the board because they're scared about these things coming on, okay, cool, power to you, man. That's fine. I am able to do all the things that I originally wanted to do. If you come forward, you're stepping forward for me to see and be able to shoot you. So I will do that as well. And at 275 points, yes, 2 of these will take up, a quarter of your list. That is actually still okay for what you're getting for this unit. It is 2 massive death balls that your opponent either has to throw everything into, or if it's a melee army like this, he must charge it with Ron. Otherwise, nobody else can touch him. Nobody. And that is a very, very dangerous prospect. Now, if we were to come back here, we are outside of 9, but we are now able to see all of these units, including the Jackals. Now, yes, if it was turn 2, we wouldn't be coming in here because that is not allowed by the strategic reserves rule, where you are only allowed to come into your opponent's deployment zone from turn 3 onwards. But if this is turn 3 and we're keeping him occupied elsewhere on the board, having this to be able to go, all right, my little guns are just going to blow up these Jackals and then I'm just going to send everything into Ron and kill him with 2 rail guns and anti-fly missile pods and everything else, like that is actually a really, really good trade for us. Now that begs the question, is it better to put these in Mont'ka or Cao Yon? Having the double explodes is obviously nothing to sneeze at. Having more volume is always nice. Or because we're losing turn 1, is it worth it for Mont'ka for the turn 2 and turn 3 lethals? I will say, honestly, I don't know the exact answer to that. My reflex is to put them in Mont'ka. Now, the reason why I say that is because I am more interested in controlling the board state and getting myself set up with areas that I have blocked out, not just my opponent being able to run it wherever they want and screen them out 9 inches from being able to come on the board, but I have been able to take control of the board, kill with things like breaches or crisis suits or whatever else, and exert a little bit of control and then have these come on as a multiplicative factor for taking over the board and killing off the things that I need to. So with that in mind, let's get into my starter list. And this is not the be all and end all. This is not the only way to run them. This is just to give you a look at how I might build a list. All right, so starting off our list, and this will be available down in either the pinned comment or the description of this video. And bear in mind, this is not the be-all, end-all. This is not the only way to run them, and this is just one iteration of a list. If you are wanting to have a list built for you using the models you own and incorporating the Tiger Sharks or literally anything else, head to the Patreon links down below. We get access to the Discord and everything else that comes with that, as well as book in coaching sessions, which you can also go to pantheonstudios.com.au and grab yourself a coaching session, including a special bundle that we've got going at the moment where you get 2 hours of coaching, a list built on top of that, and if you choose, you can also get a heavily discounted game against me in full with full coaching benefits for that as well. So, starting this off, we have Oshovar, J-Man himself. We have Commander Farsight. 105 points, the new iteration of Farsight, which I'm yet to make a video about some of the changes from the newest data slate. But one of the big ones was that it is no longer use a battle tactic for free, and if another unit has used it, it is just a flat use a stratagem for -1 CP cost. That, in my opinion, is extremely powerful and much better than the iteration that Farsight was, because we had only a few battle tactics that we could use, but now being able to use the suite of things available in Mont'ka, including being able to get -1 AP for himself and another unit, being able to, for free, give full rerolls to hit against something that kills his unit, or even just a -1 damage strat for only 1 CP, which in my opinion it should be anyway, but not to digress, Commander Farsight gives a lot of extra punch to the battlefield. Not only that, he is able to be run either solo or with the crisis unit that we've put in, which gives him +1 to wound as long as he's within 9. Remember, that doesn't just say ranged attacks, that is melee as well. So being able to charge in your Commander Farsight, he has a good chance of putting down some very heavy damage onto a target with that +1 to wound with a strength 10 strike profile. Love Oshovar. I try and include him in every list that I can. Obviously, some of them don't work with him in it, but
if I can, I do like to include our Renegade Commander. Then I've got Darkstrider in here. One, so that we can use the classic Grundy tech, because I have, spoiler alert, included a unit of Pathfinders and some Devilfish. However, with how the game is going at the moment, I'm finding that Deep Strike Denial is incredibly important, and having someone who's got a 12-inch bubble to not only protect themselves and the board, but also potentially stand in very obnoxious positions, able to do a lot of the new actions that have come up in the new mission pack. Darkstrider, in my opinion, has his stonks going way up, so I am trying to include him wherever possible. He also helps not only with the Strike Swiftly enhancement, but also going into a Devilfish and giving that a 7-inch scout move means that we are very, very readily able to leave our deployment zone and get out to exert that board control that I said before the Tiger Shark list would need. To that end, we have 2 Fireblades, one with the enhancement Strike Swiftly, both of them with 2 gun drones. These guys will be joining the Breacher teams you can see on the right of the screen at the moment. Just giving them +1 attack means that for some of the choices that we've made for the Tiger Shark, these guys are filling in for some of our volume. They are our second wave, which hits after some of our infiltrators, and add to that board control, getting full rerolls to wound with their Breacher unit when an opponent is standing on an objective. They have 2 gun drones. Because they're equipped, you will be able to fish for 6s on the wound roll, which means that they will get -3 AP as opposed to 0, which is very, very nasty. Breaches. What can I say? Did you really think I was going to make a list without our most fuckable data sheet? Breaches are incredible. I love them. I try and include them in every list that I can. And I just, if I don't have to, will not leave home without them. They are such good efficiency for their points. And it was easy to jam them into this list. Speaking of jamming things, Devilfish, jamming Breaches 18 inches up the board and able to get them out, still have them shoot, and funnily enough, with a little bit of tech where a unit cannot perform an action if it is advanced this turn, that does not extend to units that get outside of transports. So while the Devilfish won't be able to perform an action, you can get Breaches a startling distance, especially with an auto-advanced 6 strat, in order to get the Devilfish in position, then dump the Breaches out, and instead of having them shoot, get them to do an action. Though, having said that, there is also the carve-out that there is a mission modifier, which will likely be played in a few tournaments, where BATTLELINE units are able to advance and do an action, or shoot and still perform an action. So that'll be very, very powerful, including our best BATTLELINE unit, one of 2, lol, in this list. Devilfish, as well as having the 2 Seeker missiles, means that you have a non-negligible anti-tank threat that your opponent cannot just ignore. Devilfish are arguably the best transports in the game, and we may as well use them. All right, then my choice of crisis has been Star Scythe battlesuits. I've given them all flamers, a marker and a gun drone on the leader, and then a shield and gun drone on all of the others. The reason why I haven't gone for a shield on the third one is to avoid that nasty bring it down breakpoint, as well as that, I often find that by the time you're on your last crisis suit, that extra wound doesn't really matter a ton. So we are going with giving Farsight's unit fallback and shoot, as well as the Overwatch threat of the Flamers, as well as giving Farsight his Plasma AP4 and all of their Flamers AP1 when targeting anything which is non-monster or vehicle. Hear what I say, not infantry, just non-monster vehicle. That means bikers, that means all of the other units that don't have the vehicle or monster tag. These guys are really, really great. You can use them as a deep strike threat separated from Commander Farsight and have that hanging over your opponent's head to drop some smaller bases than the Tiger Sharks into some obnoxious positions, or you can run them as a complete unit and use the auto-advance 6 in order to get them up the board very, very quickly. Speaking of board control before, I've gone for a Ghost Kill Battlesuit. It has Lone Op and you're able to block 2 instances of damage. Note that as per the rules commentary, that includes Devastating Wounds. By the order at which the wounds go through, you are able to change the damage to 0, meaning that Devastating Wounds are mitigatable by the Ghost Kill. It is a very, very solid platform. We've opted for the Fusion Collider, Twin Fusion and Battlesuit support system. Gives it fallback and shoot, but it loses a smoke keyword, which we don't really care about. It's stealth anyway. This just gives you some really great, obnoxious Lone Op, which is high toughness, high wounds, and able to run up and punch a vehicle with a 2-shot strength 12 AP4 Melter 2 gun. It is really, really great for the points that you're spending, and being able to have a lone op that can deploy with Infiltrate means you can have it in some very obnoxious positions. Crew Farstalker team, I do not leave home without these guys. They are still fantastic even with the Trail Shaper nerfs. I was very, very heavily tossing up putting in a Trail Shaper for this list, but I opted for something slightly different. The Farstalker we've got on the Kill Broker, the Tau Tech Rifle. We've got the Vorite Skinner and the Pekra, which gives ignore cover to the entire unit, and the Vorite Skinner is a Flamer. These guys as infiltrators are just really, really fantastic to be able to stand in obnoxious positions, and if your opponent kills it, it's 85 points, but if you've used it correctly, you have blocked out any of their deep strikers, you have blocked out any of their infiltrators, you've been able to use those bodies to achieve something more than you would be able to while opening up your Pathfinders to go somewhere else, be in range of the Grundy maneuver, and still have screened off an enormous amount of the board. Don't forget that you don't have to expose these guys if you don't want to. They can just go and sit behind a wall that's hard for your opponent to get to, and then use their lethal hits and their precision to potentially shoot off a character, which the Farstalkers are surprisingly good at killing a single 3, 4, 5 wound character and just getting them off your table. Pathfinder team, not much to say about these guys. They're fantastic. They have Infiltrate because of the Recon drone. They have Scout 7. You can put them in the Devilfish with Darkstrider, or you can have them starting on the board as long as you set them up within 10 inches of where that Devilfish will end its Scout move. You can then move the Pathfinders and have them embark within that transport, giving them a lot of utility to either run forward or run backward, depending on what you need. I've gone for the 3 ion rifles. I've really been prizing these over the rail rifles, especially in the context of Mont'ka. The extra volume hitting on 5s just means that you will on average get more through, and even overcharging an AP2 damage 2 weapon is really, really great. I've then got 3 single model Piranha units rocking around. These are one of the best move blocking units in the game because don't forget they can scout 9, they move 14, and with the new Mont'ka rules, everything has advanced for the first 3 turns. Meaning that if you pop an auto advance 6 strat on these guys, they are going a whopping 29 inches on the first turn, or at least one of them is, and the others will be advancing. They will be moving a minimum of 24 inches and a maximum of that 29, which is even 24 inches is just a disgusting distance to go. Not only that, at the end of your movement phase, each unit gets to pick a unit and battle shock it. This can be enormous. If you're in, say, the Knights matchup and you're worried about them rotating ion shields on one of the bigger units, you can battle shock them or make them take multiple battle shock tests in order to make it so that they cannot be targeted by stratagems. Or if you need to go and steal an objective, running up there and battle shocking the unit that's on it, making them OC0 and therefore unable to hold that objective. Or if they're midway through an action that completes on the end of your turn, which there are a couple in the new mission pack, these guys can stop it relatively reliably. They also have a Fusion Blaster, which is a Melter 4 gun, so running them up in somebody's face is terrifying, as well as 2 Seeker missiles to back it up. Not only that, this unit fills a very, very important role within Mont'ka, which is giving them a body that if they kill, it's only 55 points, and then you spend a CP and you've got rerolls to hit against the unit that killed it till the end of the game. And note, it is phase locked, so if they kill something in the shooting phase, and they kill something in the fight phase, you can use the stratagems in each of those phases, assuming you have 2 CP, or it's Farsight that dies and you use his once per battle round, reduce the cost of CP by 1. We've then got 3 units of stealth battlesuits. These guys are amazing for guiding. Pairing this with the Pathfinder team, the 3 battlesuit units, and in a pinch, the Star Scythes or the Breacher team, you have a lot of guiding that could spread the board, and a couple of extra action monkeys, because you don't want everybody to have to use up all of their guiding. You want people to be able to spread out and not have to worry about those lines of sights and do the actions that you need. Note to all Tau players, guiding does not remove your eligibility to shoot and does not interact in any way with not being able to perform an action. You guide, then you're still eligible to shoot, and as long as you haven't advanced or fallen back, you are able to then start an action. The action wording specifically says during your shooting phase, not at the start of it. meaning that you are eligible to guide and then perform an action. It is very powerful. It is one of the things that I believe our faction has been balanced around. So make sure you are not robbing yourself. Anybody who tells you any of this stupid shit like Tau can't shoot after they guide. Yes, they can. You just don't get a benefit. Same. You can guide and then perform an action. Each of the Shas'vros have a fusion blast, they have a marker and a shield drone. For me, gun drones on the stealth suits are dead because the marker drone allows you to advance and guide. And the gun drone, because of the changes to the action wording, doesn't allow you to advance and perform an action anymore because you cannot perform an action after advancing. Therefore, it is a moot point, or to quote Joey from Friends, a moot point, because it's like a cow's opinion. You wouldn't listen to a cow.
It's moo.
Have I been living with him for too long, or did that all just make sense?
That means that I am favoring the +1 wound on the Shas'vra over the gun drone, which is a little bit of extra shooting, but normally I would take for the advance in action. Then on to the main stars of the show. We have the 2 Tiger Sharks. Let's run through these guys real quickly. I've opted for the Swift Strike Railgun. That is not because it is strictly better. It is just because I have filled in some of the volume elsewhere in the list, and I am looking at having those big, scary 2 railguns able to start picking up vehicles, and even throwing them into like a dead Terminator or Exalted 8-Bound with a railgun is still kind of a win if you have nothing else really good to shoot at. We're also seeing some of the big monsters coming into play. A lot of vehicle-heavy stuff is coming into the meta with some of the hordes being nerfed, so this is just an early decision that I'm making for the Tiger Sharks. Taking the ion cannons is still perfectly reasonable, and I actually want to get test games in on both. Unfortunately, I won't be able to do it in a tournament setting because I don't own the Tiger Sharks, but as the French say, c'est la vie.
You're not speaking French!
Then we've got 2 Sky Spear missile racks. We have 2 cyclic ion blasters, the 2 missile pods, and 6 Seeker missiles. These things are going to do an amazing job at killing basically anything you point them at. So use your Tiger Sharks well, use them appropriately. Don't forget, you can rapid ingress if you would like to move to a position where your opponent literally can't stop you from shooting something, or you can bring them in on your turn. And as I said before, with the change to what is allowed to act after coming in, not able to be wholly within 6 inches of the board, and with nothing overhanging the edge, the changes to the core rules and the core rules FAQ mean that we are able to do this now with the Tiger Sharks. It is very exciting, and I hope that you guys enjoy this list. With all that said, thank you so much to all of my patrons who make all of my videos possible and are driving me towards doing this full time. So if you would like to see more of me, head down to links in the description where we have our Patreon or YouTube membership. Both are as equal as each other, and you can get yourself access to the Discord, dedicated coaching, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Also, have a look at our Join the Pantheon tier, where those members are getting themselves dedicated coaching all through the month. They get literally everything that they want, including a game against me every single month, as well as on Discord events like our TTS trials, where we pick up an army that we haven't played before, pair into each other, and play a full game. It is a lot of fun. It is the best way to learn the game and get yourself up to tournament ready as soon as possible. Thank you very much to everybody for watching. I hope you enjoy the list. As always, do the internet things and like and comment and share and all that good jazz. Helping out with the algorithm god is amazing. Or don't. I'm not your dad. I'll see you in the next one.
It's moo.
You're not speaking French!